Welcome, everybody. Please chat in. Hello. Welcome to week 8 of the HR Disruptor Summit virtual experience. I am the founder of HR Disruptor Summit and your host today, Jan Barlow. And I have a phenomenal guest today, Lindsay Andreotti.
Hi, everybody.
Speaker, author, and just founder of imaginalventures.org. So if you would, everybody, those of you who are listening or can see us, please let us know that you can, type into the comments. We'd love to make sure that you can see and hear us. Okay. Wonderful. As everybody is signing in, just really excited for this week. This week's topic is about what kindness is not, right? When Lindsay, you and we talked about conscious conversations,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And, that's really how when you and I first met, I just love your history of your calling. And if you would share a little bit with our audience about your calling.
Oh, thank you. I love that. I think the way I would describe my calling is I'm here to spread more kindness in the world. As simple as that. I've had several businesses up until now, and I literally about a year plus ago changed everything to Imaginal Ventures, which I can tell that story later, but I'm working on a one of a kindness project, and I believe that everyone is one of a kindness. So that we're going to talk about kindness, and we're going to talk about what kindness isn't, because it tends to get confused. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And, when we talk about that confusion, I know when you and I originally came up with the, co-created this topic and to talk about this for the virtual experience, it started me thinking about growing up, right? And my mother, I had 3 older brothers and I was the only girl and the youngest. And, mom would always say, be nice, right? And when I was creating the content for the posts around this week, I heard that voice again, be nice. And I wanted, that was really when you think about it as a kid, you got to be nice. So that means you got to let your boundaries down. Right. And I think the first and foremost, when you talked about what kindness is not, about giving yourself up, right? Giving your power away, your agency away. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Totally. I'd love to share more about that. So, I think it's important that people recognize that kindness is actually a very easy word for other people to relate to. But the fundamental, we'll call it underpinning of kindness, is the word compassion. And compassion has a lot to do with empathy, walking a mile in someone else's shoes. It has a lot to do with acknowledging them for who they are, not for who you are. So what kindness is, I'll just go to the not channel because it's so much easier. It's just kindness is not acting nice. So there's a fundamental rule that people think that kindness is giving yourself up. It means be nice no matter what. It means compromise. It means giving in. It means letting go of what you wanted. That's not kindness. That's actually a reverse. It's more martyrdom. Which is a lower vibration. It's a lower way of being in the world. So kindness is really about standing tall in what you're here to be and allowing the other person or group or people to also do the same. That's kindness. But being nice just for the sake of being nice isn't. And I bring that a lot up in organizations, and people are confused. So I'm recognizing now that this is a time in our world where kindness can be the antidote to incivility. But where it starts is being kind here. I'm pointing at myself first, making sure that I'm clear and strong and understanding what it is that I'm up to, and then bringing that to a conversation that others are having. So I'll stop there, but there's so much more that kindness is not.
Because what you really shared is there's a self-accountability.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
100%.
Instead of feeling a victim that somebody did this to me or whatever,
right?
Kindness means being kind to yourself and owning your own emotional state,
Yes.
and the feelings, right?
Yes.
So if you're feeling uncomfortable, nobody's making you feel that way.
Nope. You're
You,
choosing that. That's how you are.
what you're accepting.
Yes.
And so kindness is, as we talked about, it's about standing up for yourself in your own right
Mhm.
and your own emotions to to really own them. And you got to be aware. So if you feel you're losing your agency or you're giving your power away, a lot of people, you have to, in order to affirm that you feel like you're giving something away, that means that you have to own it first. And if you're coming from a victim mindset, you're automatically going to say, this person's making me feel this way, right?
Absolutely. And
So
no one, like you just said, no one ever makes us feel anything. We feel because something is going through our filter and
yeah,
it's touching on a trigger point that says, feel that way. And so the object of emotion management is to also acknowledge when someone's tapping on a button that feels tender or hot to you. One of the kindest things you can do in a moment like that is to say, wow, that really touched a spot that's painful for me. Can you wait just a second? That's kind.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious to respond with anger and frustration and blame and all that. That's nowhere near the kindness zone. But it's extraordinarily kind to pause for a moment and listen deeply to yourself while you're also quite triggered by something that someone has said. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? And why am I so upset by this? Huh. That's really kind to yourself and to the other person. Half the time, we have no idea that we've upset someone by something we've said or done. And I often say that kindness is also not just, telling people fluffy things. It can be the very kind thing to say to your best friend, I think you're making a really large mistake by going out on a date with someone that looks like this on their profile.
right.
That's a kind thing to say. I love you and I'm concerned about your safety and well-being. If I say nothing and that person is hurt, how kind is that? Right?
That's right. But because you didn't want conflict.
Correct.
You chose to avoid conflict instead of to become kind or be kind. That's
Correct.
really right there the choice. True.
That's right. Yeah. There are people who are all over the world who I call them the rule followers, and my daughter is just one of them. She is like all about the rules. If the rule is listed,
right.
I'm gonna follow it to the letter. And one of the things that I tell her is, Kai, it's really helpful. It actually is a very kind thing to do to remind people of the rules, with this caveat: it's not up to you to enforce them. It's if someone chooses to ignore the sign that says please don't eat in here and they're eating, and you felt compelled to say just wanted to remind you no food in here, whatever, that's great. You can't be upset by it, and they don't need to essentially get upset by you. It's a quid pro quo thing where you're just being who you are. I'm a rule follower. Here's a rule. I'm going to point it out. But if you get upset because other people aren't following that rule, that's on you. It's not about them. They're just choosing to do what they do. And so the kind thing to yourself and to others is to do what comes to you naturally. Be authentic, be real, but don't take it personally when the person sitting across from you doesn't see it the same way. They don't. And that's okay too.
Wow. I got to tell you, you really touched on a great topic right there. Because again, we all own our own. We have a right to have our own opinion.
100%.
Right? So we have a right to, perceive what we want to and how we want to perceive things. We own that, right? Nobody, again, coming back to, it's not kind to feel like somebody has to think like you.
Correct. In fact, that's what's broken we've talked about this before many times, but that's what's broken in corporations today and in communities, large, I'll call them cities and governments and whatnot. We want everyone to think the same. We have to all agree. We can't. There will never be a time. I mean, I don't even agree with myself half the time, when I'm thinking about things.
That's
It's
exactly right.
just insanity to believe that we could have that kind of world. But what we can have is a world where at least we give other opinions the ability to have airspace, and we give other people the opportunity to say kind things. I learned so much from the teachers and people in my life who have done abominable things, but who've explained to me how they got to where they got to. And I think it's Gandhi that said, you cannot possibly hate someone that you've taken enough time to understand how they got where they are.
Okay.
I
Love,
love that.
love that.
If
That
you just take the time, you can't hate them. They just think differently. And that's okay. In fact, it's beautiful. So,
yeah, that's right there where it goes south real quick. True.
really quick.
I mean, um, we've spoken, and your dear friend Brian Peterson, who you
Oh, yeah.
shared, I mean, when he shared with me your conversation about this, a culture of hate and incivility, right?
Totally.
And CEOs, and really, this is affecting business, right? Not only
Oh,
families, not
daily.
only, your in-laws or your brothers and sisters, or, kids. This is spreading like cancer
Mhm.
across the world into our work lives,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's bad enough that it perpetuates, or people perpetuate it on social media. I think that's first and foremost. It's one thing when we used to just have TV or newspaper or a magazine, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you got 24/7, everything on, your device, I mean, everything electronic, you're going to be, getting that information or exposed to that information. And human behavior, we're always going to be attracted to the drama.
Yep. True.
Right? I mean,
Yeah. That's normal.
that's why they say if it bleeds, it leads, because that's a human behavior. I mean, you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you look, you see an accident on the side of the road. What do you do?
You look.
I mean, that's just natural. And when you look at TV, majority of TV is reality TV, right? So when we talk about, and this is funny because we talked about nice all the time. So we talked about the difference of kindness and nice.
Yeah.
But now, again, growing up saying, be nice. And I had the traditional stereotype messaging. Girls need to be nice.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so, again, it's just programming. We all have programming. There's no shame or blame. It just is what it is. What do you show up with?
Let me talk about that for just a minute too, because I think it's very important that people take a few minutes if they're working in business today and they have, for ease and grace, 100 employees, roughly, an organization made up of 100 employees. That's 100 different kindergarten classes that we're taking advantage of, right? With different teachers in different communities, in different spaces, maybe 2 or 3 from the same, but rare is it 100. And then what you are seeing is the outcropping of what basically we all learn in our brain from age 0 to 7. The conditioned mind is literally created. And I like to share this with my clients all the time, is that, you've got stuff in there that you don't even realize was put in there because you weren't aware at age 3 and 4 that was even happening. So it's why we can talk to kids who are, say, 15, 16, who were in the same household at age 4, and they're wondering, how in the world? I mean, I saw that thing totally differently. Was I in that same place? Did I go to Disney with those people? It's like we remember things for 3 purposes. Our brain is working from age 0 to 7 to keep us alive.
Yeah.
So its focus is on safety, approval, and control. And that's all it's doing. It's like scanning the environment, trying to find out, will I be safe if I do that? Do I have control of my hands when I do that? Or, what control of my environment? Do I have control of anything? Or do I get approval? Did somebody say, oh, good job. Hey, happy child. Okay. Yay. Right. And so that's all the brain is doing. It's just sucking it all in and getting one of those three things and going, that works. Well, by age 7, awareness begins. And coincidentally, age 7-ish is when kids start going to school. So now they take all that stuff that they tried in their family unit or whatever their first 7 years showed them, and they start testing. Does that work over here? Does it work with that guy? Does it work with that teacher? Does that work? Am I still safe? Everything that starts to come into the brain, and we make meaning at or around age 6 or 7. This is brain science.
Right.
So now we're sitting here going, okay. And when I walk into organizations, I tell them, I'm sitting with all of you at kindergarten. Because unless you've taken the time to figure out what it was that got put into your mind that you don't have access to, we're going to be talking about it when it starts to piss you off. That's
right.
Kindness is to say, I get where you are. I love you anyway. And we're just going to work our way through this. It's unkind, very unkind to think that someone's a jerk simply because they're saying things that are anti what everyone else is thinking. They're not a jerk.
Oh my gosh, my friend. Thank you for validating that, because again, we got to lose this judgment. It's work to program your brain to start moving past judgment, right? Accepting people for where they are, how they show up. It is what it is. You have your opinion, I have mine. And like you said, you don't have to get your panties in a wad if you don't agree with me, because that's a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
I love to ask the question. One of my favorite questions is to ask someone, I totally love your opinion, and I can see that it truly matters to you right here, right now. This is important to you. Tell me how you arrived at that opinion. And then I just listen, because that listening gives me clues all the time for how this person is coming to the table and is going to need kindness to look maybe differently. I love the book, The 5 Love Languages, and I'm sure everyone has already listened to it. Well, it applies very similarly in the distribution of kindness. Some people love words of affirmation. Some people love gifts of service. Some people love quality time. You can go through it all. But when you're distributing kindness to someone at work, it's really helpful to know what sticks, what matters to them. They don't necessarily wear that on their sleeve.
Right.
So it takes some time. Right. Yeah, it just takes time to listen and to build more intimacy, with people. So
I just really like, though, when you say you come back with a question. It's like, oh, well, you're inside, you're thinking, no, I don't agree with that.
Right.
But how about let's take this to the next level and be kind.
Right.
And understand.
Understanding is kindness.
What kindness is,
That's
right?
it. Listening. You don't even ever have to agree. I've had conversations with people where I've just simply listened, sometimes for an hour or more. I'm not agreeing with anything that they're quote unquote saying, but I am hearkening for the understanding of how did they arrive at that place. Like, I can see how they got there from this bit of conversation, and that it's tremendously helpful because it gives us a place to stand from. It's like, oh, your number one value, say, is family. And guess what? So is mine. And the way you see family and the way I see family could be totally different, but the value is still the same. And it's that cross point that allows us to have a conversation that's more filled with kindness and empathy and camaraderie, as opposed to fighting about the details of, well, if you're not a good daughter, then you don't show up at Thanksgiving, like whatever that is. Yeah.
But what I loved, because you're finding commonality in how you arrive, that mental process or the experience that got you to what you believe, because I think we all can find that commonality of how you arrived, what the journey to that experience, what you believe now, because it's different than, we don't believe the same things our whole entire life. So there are circumstances that that happen in the present moment or throughout time that change how we look at things, experiences that change us, right?
Yes.
This we're an evolving, living energy.
Amy,
So
all
why?
of us.
Yeah. So why are we so doggone just set on this end result of, oh, you don't believe the way I do? I just love how I just really love. I am going to be open to ask about the journey of how you arrived at
Mhm.
that, because I
Mhm.
know I can connect with
Yeah.
that journey, right? At some point, I know I'm going to find commonality. Oh my gosh, thank you. First of all,
You're
I
welcome.
love that.
Yeah.
We talked about softening the truth.
Yes. Oh,
Please share with me some more about that, because I got to be honest,
yeah.
sometimes I'm direct. Okay. I mean, a lot of my friends will say, Jan, did you just say that? Look, I'm sorry. I mean, I grew up with all boys. They did not beat around the bush. We didn't have a lot of words. Like it was this way or that way, and that's it. I mean, I'm sorry. I got to do better. So tell me how to soften. Tell me how to soften.
It's fun, Jan, what you just said. First of all, I don't think you ever need to. I think you just say, I'm Jan and I tend to be very direct. Are you okay with that? And if people don't, it's like, whoa, I don't know what to do with direct. Well, then great. Okay, so let me try to tell you in as gentle a way as I know how what I'm seeing or what I'm observing or how I'm experiencing this, whatever the words are you're going to choose. I don't think we ever really want to soften the truth. I think we want to tell the truth. I just don't think we need to tell it with anger or malice. And
Yes.
what I always told my kids is you can say anything you want, just say it with love.
Yeah.
And if you put the love behind it, like, wow, I would really enjoy my friendship with this person to evolve and blossom even more than it has, then even if you tell them that they have bad breath, you're saying it with
Yeah.
love and kindness. You're saying it because you love them. You'd want them to know. It's sort of like I'm that person who always tell you have something in your tooth, I'm always that person because who wants to be the one walking around with the thing in your tooth?
Yes.
Right? So we don't
Exactly.
have to soften the truth. I think we need to maybe express it in ways that can be received. And some people can't handle directness. That's
Right.
fair. Just say, I can't handle directness. Can you help me get it through maybe a metaphor, a story, whatever, But it's up to us. Here's that 100% accountability again. It's up to us to be the communicator and the receiver and to let the other person know how we need to receive. Don't just assume that someone is a jerk because they do it this way and it doesn't work for you or it's uncomfortable for you. That your discomfort is yours.
Yeah.
It's okay to say to someone, I feel really uncomfortable with what you just said. Hang on a second while I take a breath and sort out in my system where that touched a tender place or a something. Did it sound like my older brother? Did it sound like my mom?
Yes.
What was it that just touched me when all you were saying was, I didn't like the way you did that report. Well, okay. Like,
Right. Okay.
okay, let's have a conversation about what you do like. So this notion of conversation, and this is why I love your conscious conversations topic so very much. It's near and dear to my heart. The more conscious we are of our own patterns, of our own behaviors, of our own willingness to be open to other people's stories, the better off these conversations get. If we shut down and close off and think that everyone's a jerk and I want to live in a box, it's lonely in there. And that's my story. I mean, I can speak from a place of truth. I put myself in a box and it was like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to live over here and I don't need to be bothered by all this other stuff. And what I really learned in the process of working my way out of that box, it looks like depression, it looks like a
Oh,
lot of things.
that's not pretty, is it?
It's never pretty,
Not pretty.
but the going through it is so powerful
Yeah.
in opening us up to what we really are and allowing that to be okay. And the kindness to self is the place to begin.
Yes.
We can't be kind to others if we're not kind to ourselves. Cannot do it. So if you're quietly judging yourself every 5 minutes about something that you're doing wrong or can't do, whatever, you're never going to be kind to anyone else. You'll just be judging them too.
Well,
So,
and and, you know, when you sit there and say, you know, kind to yourself, but that's also means you're empowered.
yeah.
You're not in a victim mindset, right? Kind of, because that victim mindset has a lot of self-demeaning. That's a self-demeaning voice, right?
Yep.
So you got some bad talk, self-talk going on,
Right.
right? And so I think that really reaches the core of, you first have to hold yourself accountable for being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Self-regulating those emotions, being aware of those emotions. If you feel like you're lashing out or somebody's comment makes you angry, that means you know, when you feel that, and if you're not addressing it, you're not being kind to yourself, right?
Mm-mm. And that creates a negative spiral in a direction that really makes relationships, whether they're interpersonal or person to organization, they come undone. And they have to, because both parties feel like they have to hold on to something that's uniquely theirs rather than finding the common ground. And so it never works if you're just giving up yourself all the time, ever. It never works. The other person or group will run over you as long as you possibly will let them, until the time that you break. And then that just severs everything. And it causes like this entire mess. And having worked in HR for a number of years, lived through many of those, you know, and it's not a recipe for success on either side. I call it lose-lose, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for win-win, then really get in here and know what the win is for you. It's not always the outcome that you think it is. It's more about just being able to be heard. Sometimes it's, you know, hey, I just realized I don't really fit in this organization. And it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because I really want to be spending my time doing X and they want me to do Y. There's no harm or foul. It's like, cool. Without that, it just causes all kinds of chaos. And that's the work that I've been doing for the last 15 years, is in that space of get to know yourself. Really well.
We got to move beyond this self-discovery. It's about self-mastery. Like, if
100%.
you know, how many doggone Disc and Myers-Briggs and Color and Wonderlic, like, people, let's move on. That's we got
old news.
Up our human game, right? And when we talk about emotional intelligence, that was in 1990. Okay, that's
Daniel Goleman wrote that in 1990, and they were talking about it before then. So where we're at now is, you're right, it's emotional mastery. It's mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. There's 4 components to this, and a lot of people take one angle or another. And in my business that is also on the table, Brilliance Enterprises, we talk about your brilliance being the mastery of those 4 things. When you know yourself well enough and you know where your brilliance is, you can't be knocked over. You're never a victim. And that's consciousness. It's another word or a way of describing consciousness, is you've mastered this vehicle. Whatever this is,
right?
You mastered it. And, you know, and I'm not saying you have to be 110% in all categories at all times. We can't. That's the other fallacy. That's not possible. But I do think we can take time to really understand, well, what do I think about my spirit and my soul? What do I think of, you know, how is my mental capacity, and what am I doing to manage my mental acuity? What am I doing to take care of this physical thing that I travel around in every day? You know, and what am I doing to manage my emotions? All of that pieces together to form the you that makes you one of a kindness. You're one of
I love that. Again, one of a kindness. I just think it's just so great. Oh my God.
Thank you. I'm happy.
I just love that. And, you know, when we talk about this kindness, again, it's owning the kindness, right? For yourself, and being kind to others. And if you, number one sign is that GPS, our emotional guidance system, if we are feeling something is not right or defensive, or it's reaction, like, in a negative, from a negative perspective, that's your first GPS red flag.
Yep.
It's time to stop and be kind to yourself and ask, let me take a pause here, because I need to be kind to myself, right?
Yep. Totally. I think it's the most important thing we can do. I was 40, I believe, 40 years old. I'm now 56. I don't care if people know how old I am. So when I was 40, I remember one of my friends sitting across from me and saying, what do you do to really be kind to yourself, to take care of yourself? And I looked at her and I started to cry. I was a mom. I had 2 companies. I was running around doing all kinds of stuff, traveling everywhere. And I just went, absolutely nothing. Like I could not even think bubble bath in that moment. Like nothing came to me. And it really was disconcerting that I had to learn the hard way. But it really served me well to realize that I was doing 0.0 to take care of this one. And so now it's my priority. It's sort of like what they say on the airlines, put your oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others.
No, doesn't that just make sense?
It's legit. It really works. And so, since that time, I have been doing that. And, I get some criticism from family members and clients and whatever. It's like, no, because I will be no good to you as a coach, a friend, a mom, anything, if I'm not in my highest and best game. You're going to get low game and we're not going to be playing very fast. So when you talked about the human game, yes, let's up it. Let's level up. And I'm playing to win. I'm not playing not to lose. And so many people are trying to, avoid and not lose something that they feel like they've gotten to at this point. Oh, the only way to win is to crash and burn 700 times and then see what happens so that you can.
It's a life of contrast, right? It's a life of contrast. There's no failure is not an outcome. It's a fear.
You're right. And fears are mysteriously not real. So,
right. That could be a whole nother episode. I mean,
really good. We could talk about fear. I have some good stuff on that too, but
I love it. Well, first of all, what kindness is not, we know what kindness is now. And that's what really I think is so important. Thank you, Lindsay, for that, especially that aha moment for me. And I hope it was for a lot of our audience. When you come across that situation that somebody that you may not agree with, right? And, just automatically go into that curiosity mode and ask, how did you arrive at that belief? And I know for sure, for me, I'm going to look for that commonality in the journey, right? Instead of the end of just today. Well, you may look differently upon a certain topic versus me, but next week, you never know. I mean, really, that's what we're, but we can all focus on the journey and find that commonality and compassion with one another. My friend, I love it. And so we're going to, on LinkedIn, also, all your information is there. They can contact you. Please make sure to connect with Lindsay Andreotti. My friend, thank you for sharing part of your day with me. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Oh, you'll see me tomorrow. Just kidding.
Thanks for joining us, and hope you'll be able to listen to the replay and stay tuned for next week. We'll have 2 virtual experiences next week. We have Ashley B coming back on Tuesday. We had that rescheduled from August. And then we have a great twofer on Thursday, Sarah, and we have Erica, all about our solopreneur. That's going to be the whole solopreneur project with 2 speakers next Thursday. So fun-filled next week, virtual experiences. And again, my friend, talk soon, okay?
Thank you so much, Jan. Bye, everybody. Be kind.
Be kind.